Hi everyone, welcome back to Twinstrology. I have a special edition of Twin Flame Talk today. I'm going to be interviewing two twin flames in a physical relationship, and they are Sandra and Alan. You may have heard of them before, and they are going to be sharing their story to union, and it's quite an interesting one. So welcome, Sandra and Alan.
Hi. Awesome to be here. Thanks for having us on, Marla.
No problem. Thank you.
We always like telling our story. Yeah, Marla's pretty cool.
And I like listening to people's stories because everyone's journey is so unique and everyone has a special perspective to share.
And I think we're kind of the storytellers anyway, because that's what we do. We get on radio and we tell stories, and that's where the keys and the codes are to activate people.
I think one of the things that we found out a lot of times too, and it may sound odd to some people, other people not so much, it's not even really what you say is to how it's being said.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the frequency that's coming across with what's being said. I mean, we've heard that numerous times and we've experienced it. So, you know, everybody takes away from it what they will.
Yep. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How did you meet?
In the beginning. Go ahead, dear. Way back before dirt was even on the blueprint.
Actually, we met in a little town called
Oberlüssel.
In
Germany.
In 1985.
Mm-hmm.
And we had actually only lived 3 hours apart from each other in the United States, but the universe seemed fit to send us to Germany to meet.
Wow. Isn't that incredible? You only live 3 hours apart and you met in Germany.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was one of the weird things too, because in order for me to get there, she was already married to a serviceman. And I had just gotten out of my basic and AIT, and I had chosen, you know, whenever you get out of that phase of your military training, you have places that you can tell them that you want to go. And number one on my list, because my last name is Speer, S-P-E-E-R, a rather auspicious name in German history. If you know anything about World War II, look it up. You'll find out. So, you know, naturally, I wanted to go back to where my ancestry came from. And they said, well, it'll never happen. You know, a lot of people want to go there. You're never going to go there. 1 out of 100 people get to go there. I got to go there. I was like, all right, cool. All right.
And I was big and pregnant at the time. And
you were pregnant?
I was pregnant at the time and married, and I happened to be on the camp that day because I lived off on the economy, and I happened to be there with my best friend, and there was like it was almost like a track. It was such a small post, okay, and so it's like a track going around the entire complex, and we were walking from the BAQ room. And started to head towards like where the barracks were on the left-hand side of this road, and a bus was pulling in with the new recruits. And off steps this really tall, very predominant jaw structure, beautiful. I was a long way away, and I could see his eyes, and I stopped in my tracks and I looked at my girlfriend and I said, oh my God, I'm going to marry him. And you can imagine her response. It was like, you're married and you're about to give birth. Have you lost your mind?
What are you talking about?
You need to not say stuff like that. And I said, something's telling me I'm going to marry him. And so a few months passed, daughter was born, and we had an opportunity on the camp to go to the NCO club for Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. And they were having a Valentine's Day dance. And oddly enough, they were having, you could get, what did they call it, unlawfully married? And it was Sadie Hawkins. And And so Sadie Hawkins puts the power back into the woman's hands, okay? She gets to pick who she wants to dance with. And I honed in on him and said, he's mine. So I walked over and he kind of gave me that look like, you're not even my type, you know? But he honored that, and we got out on the dance floor. And you have to understand, he's 6'4" and I'm 5'4", so there's a big difference in height. And he's really tall and lanky, and at the time he was very well built, so he just put me to shame. And I was short and stocky, a bigger girl. And once our eyes locked, it was like everyone in the room disappeared. They were still there, but to us, they were gone.
It went dead silent. There was nothing else. We couldn't see anything else. There was nothing. And that place was hopping this night. It was busy. And we just kind of went off into our own little world, surrounded by all these people, but it was so quiet. It was unbelievable.
And we did end up getting unlawfully married, which is kind of funny when you think about it.
It's ironic, as you'll find out later.
Okay, Sandra, stop a minute.
Yeah.
Where was your husband?
He was at the apartment, and he was with my daughter.
Okay, so he was babysitting for you.
We weren't getting along really good. An incident had happened. I went back to the States, and when I came back, he wasn't being so good.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of tension between us, and I said, that's it. I just had a baby. I am going out. I'm going to have some fun, and you can sit with the baby.
Okay.
And so I went out dancing, and again, I went with my friend, and we just really, it was so unexpected what happened, because I can't even explain it. It was just this magical moment, and it was not even 12 hours, and Alan and I got to spend time together, dance together, a few other things together.
Say that.
And then we went our separate ways. And it was shortly after that I ended up going back to the United States, to my hometown in Missouri. And I had this little girl to raise, and I was well on my way to getting divorced. And a few months in, I heard this voice in my head and said, go to the front door. And I was like, what? Okay. And like I said, I have guides that talk to me. Higher self talks to me. And so I went to the front door and I opened it, and here's this tall, lanky guy walking down the street. He didn't have a military cut anymore. He had kind of long, curly hair.
Out a little bit, yeah.
And he had a duffel bag over his shoulder, and I went, Helen? And he went, oh, there you are!
I've been looking all over this little town for you.
And I'm like, what are you doing here?
And I said, well, you told me before you left, if you ever happen to be in my town, look me up. So what she didn't know at that point in time was that the night before I'd gone out partying, and I just couldn't keep from thinking about her. I just kept thinking about her and thinking about her. So at about, 1 in the morning, I think, I walked back to my house, where at that point in time I was staying with my mom and dad. I grabbed my duffel bag and I just started jamming it full of everything I could. And of course my parents were like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to go hitchhiking. And of course they looked at me like I was crazy, which at that time I think they had good reason to think and or say that. I had gotten a ride to a neighboring town, and we partied a little bit more, and then I just started walking towards St. Louis to where I could catch a bus at the Greyhound bus station in downtown. I bought a ticket, hopped the bus, woke up in Waynesville, and just started walking around looking, because I didn't have an address, so I was sitting there trying to find out where she lived.
Okay, wait. So, how long had it been since you saw each other in Germany?
Probably 7...
God, 6, 7 months?
Yeah.
Maybe? Something like that?
Okay, so were you thinking about Sandra the whole time, Alan?
Intermittently, yeah, because at that point in my life, I quite a drinker and recreational drug user. And, I was kind of all over the map, but I couldn't get her out of my head. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a constant thing, but it was something that I thought about frequently.
There was a feeling that she was special to you.
Yeah, and I didn't know what it was because, she wasn't my type, not really.
Mm-hmm.
But there was that meeting in the NCO club where we locked eyes. I mean, there was that recognition, that instant recognition, and I couldn't shake it. And I tried. I really did. I tried to shake it, and it just wouldn't go.
And I think all true twin flames can kind of, they know what that moment is like.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And it was really funny because I was back in that town and I was actually dating someone who kind of looked like Alan.
Uh-huh.
And I remember them being very, very upset when you showed up because everything got dropped at that point. It's like, oh, no.
Well, what about you, Sandra? Were you thinking about Alan?
Oh, yeah. I thought about him quite frequently. But I never in my wildest dreams thought he was going to show up on my doorstep. He didn't even have my address. And the bus station was probably only, 2 blocks from my house?
Wasn't that far, yeah, 3 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't that far. But...
It wasn't that far. But for me to go to the door at that exact moment when he's walking by,
Yeah, so you were already you were getting guidance.
Yeah.
About the situation already.
So he stayed.
He found me and he wouldn't leave.
But at that point, we were really young and we were volatile. We didn't know exactly what that connection was. There wasn't internet to look it up and say, hey, I got this really weird thing going on with this person and I need some answers. It just wasn't there. So we started expanding and contracting at a massive rate. Alan would go and do his thing, which when he says he was a very interesting young man.
Freedom-loving individual, yes. We'll say that.
So by this time I'm 21 and he's 24. And I'm raising my daughter, and he's going out because he wants to go out and have fun. And if I'm going to go out and have fun, I got to get a babysitter. So I'm like, go ahead and have fun. And I think back then he probably thought I was really jealous, and a couple times I probably was, but it wasn't so much jealousy as it was these constant thoughts that would flash into my mind like, am I losing my mind? Why do I know what he's doing?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a little disturbing, to say the least, to know what someone's doing and then they confirm it when they get back.
Right.
And so he would go out and have fun, and I'd confront him when he'd come in and say, this is what you were doing. And he goes, what, you got spies everywhere?
No,
are you watching me? I haven't left. I haven't talked to anybody. No. And so it just really started to move at a very fast rate. And I think it's really important when people are coming together that they understand that if you're balancing the frequency at that time, it can go from being the most blissful thing to being the most chaotic thing you've ever experienced in 2.2 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it would explode at the drop of the pen.
Oh, man.
Just explode.
Yeah.
And we didn't know.
We just thought we were crazy.
Yeah.
Honestly, we just thought that we were two people that really weren't meant to be each other or with each other. But at the same time, we didn't know how not to be.
Yeah.
So whether or not that's a textbook definition of codependency, I don't know. But I mean, we were comfortable in our uncomfortableness.
Yes, we were.
I think a lot of twins kind of go through that, and I kind of feel that often from like the masculine perspective, because it's like, well, this is too hard. If we were meant to be together, why would it be so hard?
Yeah, it should be paradise, right?
Right. But like you said, you've got to balance the frequency, which is what people don't fully understand.
So when we came together, we had this amazing blissfulness, and it was so blissful that when it really tipped, it became very traumatic. So I think it's really important that people understand when you're in this state of amazing bliss when you first meet, when you contract, it's the most horrific contraction that you can experience. Anything that's within you that you have an issue with or a belief system that needs to be shaken up, it will be shaken up. Mm-hmm. And on a mass scale, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You are just the classic case of every kind of nut and fruit mixed into this bowl all at once. And that was a little bit difficult because we knew we loved each other a lot, mm-hmm. beyond any other. We're going to say connection. I can't even say relationship anymore because it's really hard for me to say because there is no comparison.
Right.
To this connection. So
can you before you go on, Sandra, can you just explain to everybody a little bit deeper what you mean by expansion and contraction? Because I love that you guys have developed this terminology and way of explaining it.
Okay, so if you look at a contraction like a woman giving birth, when she has a contraction, it's the most horrific thing she's ever experienced in her life. It's the most traumatic pain. If the man's near her, she's going to kill him. Okay, it's like, don't touch me. You made me this way. But then when the contraction goes away, that's what we would coin expansion. So you've experienced such traumatic pain in the contraction that when it subsides, it feels blissful and peaceful, and you're like, oh, thank goodness. But mm-hmm. in this twin dynamic, the same thing is occurring. So you have this amazing bliss with this person, and it expands every senses in you, and it expands your love bubble, and it's just amazing.
And your consciousness.
Yes, exactly. And then when you go into a contraction, it's like a woman giving birth. I'm going to kill him if he touches me. And it's like they're confused, you're confused, but then in your contraction and they're in your space, you're in each other's energy. The contraction far oversees the expansion. So I could be in a contraction and Alan can be in the bliss. And yes, it's balanced. But at the same time, it tips the other person and goes, you're psycho right now. What is wrong with you? Mm-hmm. Okay? You're not pregnant. You don't have this huge belly. You're not giving birth to a child. You're giving birth to all of the belief systems inside of you, and they need to come out. Yep. And in this dynamic, one will push and one will pull. One will push, one will pull. It's constantly the teaching and learning, the teaching and learning, the learning and teaching. And it just goes back and forth. And that's what was occurring. We would have this amazing bliss, this love bubble that was amazing, and all of a sudden a contraction would move in, and it would just turn our worlds upside down.
Yeah. And we didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
We had no idea. We were both like, how can something that can be, on one hand, so beautiful and so great and feel so spectacular, and then literally at the drop of a hat, it would just turn.
Mm-hmm. And it would feel like this was the worst experience you have ever been in. They are the rudest and most unsensitive and person you've ever met. But you know you love them because you've experienced this bliss. Mm-hmm. And that is really, really hard. So we were in that for about 4 years. We managed to stay in it. But in that 4 years, we learned some cycles. We could be in the bliss for 6 months. And when the bliss went away and we went into a contraction, we would have to separate. Mm-hmm. And he would go to his mom and dad's. Well, his mom and dad began to tell us we're codependent on each other. And we were like, no, if he stays around, I'm going to kill him. And he was like, if I stay around her, I'm going to kill her. And along came babies.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of all of this.
In the middle of all of this chaos.
Because of what was going on with us, we had sat down and discussed it and did not want children. So we were on every form of birth control that we could think of. And at the time, that was birth control pills. You remember the Today Sponge? I don't know if too many people do. Yeah, the Today Sponge, condoms and spermicides. Okay? You would think that would keep people from getting pregnant. Right?
Twin flames.
No,
Ultra fertile.
No. It was like, not only did we get pregnant, we got pregnant with twins. And so we went through this. There was a really, even in getting pregnant, we had trauma. Okay? You would think that would be the most blissful thing to learn, that you're going to have children. Because creating a child is a blissful thing for most people. Some people, not so much. And for us, it was a bit shocking, but it should have been very much blissful. But because of the circumstances, it became very traumatic very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I had went to the store and I bought a pregnancy test and I took it and it said negative, and I'm like, whew, thank goodness, because I was feeling butterflies. You know how you know you're pregnant? You just feel butterflies.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling those and I'm thinking, wow, this is way too soon. If I'm even pregnant, this is way too soon, because he had just come back from being at his mom and dad's. So he hadn't been gone that long and I hadn't slept with anybody else. And I'm thinking, this is awful quick, you know? So it came up negative and I was ecstatic and I threw it in the trash. And I didn't think anything of it till 2 hours later when I went back in the bathroom, happened to look down in the trash and it's positive, great big. And I was like, uh-oh, what's going on here? How can it be negative 1 minute and positive the next? So then I had to say, honey, we need to talk. And accusations were being flown everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
They really were.
Big time.
Because we were using every precaution we possibly could. Mm-hmm. So I made an appointment with the doctor, and the doctor said, well, let's bring you in for an ultrasound. And when they started examining me, they noticed that there was echoes on the wall of the uterus. And they were like, we have many options. This was the most horrific thing that Alan and I could have gone through together, I think, to date, don't you?
Yeah, that was weird. This was all done on a Friday. Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Okay. So it was done on a Friday. The doctor examined me and he said, well, we have a multitude of options here. Either you have a tumor and a dead baby, or you have 2 or 3 babies and one of them is possibly dead. And they were all just this doom and gloom scenario. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm going to get you in as soon as I can Monday morning. For an ultrasound to find out what's going on. So you tell us this on a Friday, instill this fear and panic in us, and we can't find out what's really going on until Monday.
Wow. Yeah, that's hard.
So we had all these things going on in our mind, and it was just a very traumatic weekend. So we ended up going on Monday and had the ultrasound done, and it was like these little people showed up on this screen with their fists doubled up in a fight in the womb. And it showed up on the screen. And we were like, this is us.
Of course, we didn't know that then, but we're like, ooh, those are some spicy little children in there, you know?
Yeah. And it was the quietest ride home ever to find out that that's what had happened. We were having twins. And there was some relief, but at the same time we're going, okay, we're going from 1 child to 3. And we just wanted 1, and how are we going to take care of 3? So Alan really got his stuff together. He really did. He got on the straight and narrow, and he really tried. And he made it 6 months. And we went into a major contraction. And literally, when we went into a major contraction, so did I. was starting to deliver them really early. And so the doctor said, "You're going to the hospital." And at that time, we understood why my divorce hadn't went through yet, because I needed the military hospital to have the babies. And my ex was like, "We're still married. You're going to need medical care. So just go to the Army hospital and we'll make sure they're taken care of." Thank goodness, because we had so many traumatic things happen during that pregnancy.
Yeah.
And it was just, like I said, bringing them into the world. They were fighters. And they fought every step of the way. One of them actually died for over 4 minutes during delivery.
Oh, wow.
And I was pretty ornery in the hospital. Every time they would have shift change, I smoked, and I would sneak into the bathroom and I'd smoke, and I would shove the smokes down the drain. And after a while being there, it started backing up. So the one nurse that was in charge of taking care of me said, I'm watching this all the way through. I will be in the delivery room when you give birth, because I want them to get you out of this hospital. And I thought, oh, you're not very nice. But I got to tell you, that woman did what she said she was going to, and she was the one that saved that twin's life. She gave her mouth to mouth.
Wow.
And so we always tell people what appears to be in the 3D, what something looks like, is not necessarily what it is. So you look at somebody and you feel like, man, you're not very nice. Why are you talking to me like that? But then they turn around and they do something that was life-changing for us, and that was saving one of the children. And you have to look at life and view it a little different. And so those girls are going to be 33 years old this year. So it was a major, major contraction, one of the very biggest ones we ever experienced.
Yeah.
So.
And so what happened after that?
Well, we separated.
Yeah.
We were in separation.
I don't want to give you every detail, because we could literally be here for hours and hours, seriously. But there was one point after everything, and I had gotten all sorts of different jobs, and I was trying to do everything I could to keep these kids fed and us fed, and the diapers, forget about it. I mean, you can imagine. And I just spiraled out of control. I just lost it because, again, and I'll reiterate it, I was huge into addiction at that point, but I was functional. And the only reason was because I was young enough my body could bounce back, and I was strong. And there finally came a day to where I came home from work.
Yeah.
I think it was, and Sand was sitting in our place, and she just had this look. And I was like, what? What's going on? And she basically said, I think it's best at this point if you go. And she had already gotten a bus ticket, and she handed me the bus ticket. And the next day?
Yeah, the next day.
The next day, I left.
So how were you guys feeling about that? Like, was it very emotional, or were you, just fed up with it all?
Ironically, we decided that if we were going to go our separate ways, we had my mother watch the kids. Mm-hmm. And we decided to go out to dinner to a really nice restaurant and lounge in my hometown. And we just really had a good time. We danced. We had a great meal. We met some people. And at one point, somebody said, what are you guys celebrating? And Alan said, we're getting divorced.
You can imagine the look we got.
And they were like, what? What do you mean? You guys are having a great time. Why are you getting divorced? I said, well, I have 3 children that I'm raising, and I really can't raise 4. And we just had a good time. And then the next day he got on the bus. He did call me and said, I can't take everything with me. Are you sure I have to go? And I'm like, leave it at the bus station. I'll pick it up. You get on the bus and don't look back.
And that's what I did.
And we went our separate ways, and I I remarried somebody, and he did too. And we didn't come back together, actually. And I mean, did not come back together. He did not see the children. He did not have contact with me, nothing.
Not a phone call, not a letter, nothing.
His dad would pick up the phone when I would call and say, I've got divorce papers I need signed, which is a story in itself, let me tell you.
Right.
And my mom worked at the courthouse, so she knew how to do the divorce. And she said, okay, well, we're going to send this return receipt requested, and he'll sign for it, and it'll start the divorce proceedings. And that's all well and good. It wasn't until we actually started to come back together this last time that we realized Alan didn't sign those papers.
I never saw them. My dad got them in the mail. He signed them and sent them back. So legally we were divorced, and legally we weren't.
So during that time, you did get legally married the first time around.
Okay. Yeah. It was on my birthday. Yeah. If I can tell you anything, don't get married on your birthday, ever. But the 14th comes into play for us quite frequently. So that major time was on the 14th of February. Another major time was the 14th of December. That's my birthday. And 14 just kept popping in. And at the time, we didn't know anything about numbers, you know?
No.
And so it's just been, we did get married, and shortly after we got married, we had a major contraction. And it went crazy again. It was just this constant expansion and contraction. And when I look back on it, I know it was about every 6 months, but the closer to time it came for us to literally go our separate ways, it became more frequent. I think it was down to like a couple times a month. Yeah, so
every couple of weeks.
It would change. And it would be, okay, we'll be in this blissful state for just a short time, and then we go into a major contraction. And our contractions weren't small. They were huge.
What kind of things would come up during, can you share anything that would come up? Or is it just like arguing, disagreements, or was it just because of the belief systems that were appearing?
Yeah, I believe it was mainly belief systems.
It was a lot of that. I mean, there was a lot of pressure between our families for us to get split up. Her mother was horrific. My dad was horrific when it came to that. And I mean, there's just a lot of pressure all the way around. You know, plus we're a couple of kids who don't really know anything from anything. You know, we didn't know what this was that we were going through. Like I said, we just thought we were crazy.
We had one parent between each of us. So his dad was really, I had a nickname, which I prefer not to mention, that his dad called me. And my mom called him a name I prefer not to mention as well. And it was like, what is wrong with you? But the opposite would happen in that same looking glass. My dad used to say, Sam, don't hurt the boy. Every time I would get mad at him, I'd go and I'd say, Dad, give me the gun, because I'm going to kill this man. Literally, I would tell my dad that. And he'd say, Sandy, you can't hurt the boy. I say, yes, I can. Give me a gun.
And I'll show you.
And the same applied with his mom about me. So we had exact opposite ends of the spectrum.
That's weird. Yeah, so neither one of your parents were like on board with each other. As far as what your relationship was.
Right.
Yeah, and it was just this constant push and pull, push and pull, push and pull. And so not alone that we were having the push and pull, but we had our parents having the push and pull too. And the ones that would defend, like my dad would defend Alan, would get in a fight with my mother about it. And his mom would defend me to his dad, and so they would fight about it. So this lineage line was just getting all shaken up, and everybody's lives were topsy-turvy and in a tailspin. And when I looked at it, it just seemed like there was no way out, and it was time for us to go our separate ways and just deal with our family issues. And let me have a fighting chance to raise these kids in some kind of calmness. Because they were gifted. I could put these two on, they used to have these coffee tables that had cushions on either side and then a wood in the center. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
and they were kind of rustic looking. And I could put one of the kids on each side, and they would sit for an hour and say things simultaneously. And so they were gifted, very gifted themselves. They're twins, you know? And I think it just became one of those things where it was just too hard. It was so hard.
Yeah.
And the kids grew up and they're like, why did my dad leave? Why did my dad leave? And it took me years to tell them, your dad didn't leave because he wanted to. He left because I told him to. Because I needed to raise them. And it was going to happen no matter how you look at it. But I think it was easier for me to be the one that said, I made him leave. And it was a lot of learning went on during that time. What things that I had gone through as a child were surfacing as I'm raising my children. I've got someone who's very manic right alongside me, making the mania crazy, and just my body is going to heck in a handbasket too. It's just falling apart, and I couldn't cope. So this is where I discovered that by buying Alan the ticket to go and get out of town, I was actually the runner and made it look like he was.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, he didn't want to leave. I made him leave. And then I turned around and said, he left.
Well, you're friends with Rob and Angie as well. And if you know Angie's story and her story with Rob, Angie suffered a lot of abuse as a child. And when she was connecting with Rob the first time around, he triggered a lot of that abuse to come up for her. So how did that play out for you, Sandra?
It was not too many months had went by when Alan actually left. And I will say the daughter that I had before Alan and I came together was out on the swing when he left, and he went out to tell her. And she goes, it's time.
Yeah, she was 2.
Wow. Yeah.
It's time.
She was 2, and she said, yeah, it's time.
Yeah. So,
whoa. That'll sober you up really quickly.
That in itself was very sobering for me. Number one, because I was adopted. Okay. And I had went through traumas that I wouldn't find out about all of them until later on when Alan and I came back together, because some of them were quite shocking. But there were a few that I did know about at that time. And there was a lot of sexual abuse. There was many times when I had died and came back. Near-death experiences. I didn't find out until Alan and I came back together that my biological father had actually pushed my mom out of the car when I was in vitro going down the highway. He was so angry at her that he thought that the child she was carrying was not his and kicked her out of the car, opened the door and kicked her out. And so, number one, trauma in vitro. And then shortly after that, she just lost it and was going down the highway and threw all 3 of her children out the car window. And then that didn't work, so she tried to burn the house down. And the older one got the other 2 out and hit us in a ditch. And then she took us to a quarry, a swimming quarry, and threw us all in the water, and none of us knew how to swim.
Oh my goodness.
So the oldest one learned that day how to swim, and he saved myself and my other brother.
Wow.
And we were just babies. I wasn't even 2. And that didn't kill us, so she fed me a bottle of kerosene. And it was just this repeated. Now, a lot of people will listen to this and go, oh my God, that's horrible. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. Because I signed up for this before I came in. Because every time that something happened to me, an amazing gift was given to me. I'm not in the victim. I'm not the victim. I'm taking my power back. Ironically, where all of that stuff took place before I was 2, I am in that county right now. Mm-hmm. Right now as we speak. The first time I've ever been back. Where I was born. And I've got to tell you, it's been very empowering.
It has.
I'm watching the little girl in me having fun and saying, I love it here. I love it here. And I avoided this like the plague my whole life.
Yeah. And Saturn on the South Node.
Yeah.
You're going back and you're clearing it up. And you're getting rid of it.
Yeah.
We had Lee Harris on the show, and we were talking about him when this first happened. And I told him, I said, it's really bizarre how this is all coming back around so we can rewrite the story. I said, because we're back here where I was born. And he said, you left the traumatized child, but you came back the woman of wisdom. So you're taking your power back.
Yeah.
And that's what this feels like. It feels like rewriting this story, taking my power back. And now I get to really step into who I was always meant to be, and I avoided it. I didn't want to see it because with my 3D eyes, this looked horrific. Mm-hmm. And it was horrific. But I'm here, and now I get to step back into my power, and it feels great. So I think it's observance and how you observe the things that have gone on. A lot of people can't recuperate from things like that. And they just give up. My mother said before she took her last breath, she had us on speakerphone and she apologized to Alan as she's dying. And she said, I'm so sorry for what I put you through. And she said in front of her siblings who, they think I'm crazier than a coot. They think he's crazier than a coot. Okay? Because that's who they knew then.
This is your adopted mother?
Huh?
Your adopted mother?
Yes. And she told Alan, please take care of my girls, and I'm so sorry. But at the same time, in front of her siblings, she said, if there's one person on this planet that can move mountains, it's my Sam. And my mother had never said too many nice things about me her entire life. But that to me was the shifting point. My heart just went and just burst wide open. And it was like, Alan and I are making changes in our world. And it's expanding. And the expansion stays more than the contraction. And when the contraction comes, it's easier to get through now. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem so bad. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't make it to that point. So you were dealing with kind of... Sorry.
A lot of stuff, we'll say, with your family, with your childhood, and all of that. So what was that like, that 10 years separation for the two of you? What was going on in regards to, you weren't having any communication? Were you thinking about each other?
I really consciously did not know that I was thinking about him because I tried to commit suicide several times. And every time I would even think about it, I would see him in my reality walking somewhere and go, uh-oh, what's he doing here? And it would be on those days when I was on my way home and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to end it. And it was at this one bridge, I remember the last time that I tried. I was going across the bridge and I seen him walking with that duffel bag and going, oh no, he's back. And my dad happened to be at the coffee shop around the corner and I pulled in and I said, Alan's here. And he goes, honey, there's no way Alan's in town. He's been kicked out of this state. That's a long story. We won't get into it. But he's not allowed in the state. He's not stupid enough to come back to the state. You did not see him. I said, yes, I did. So seeing him in my physical reality pulled me away from the thought process where I was. I wanted to end it and didn't want to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that never took place. It never happened because I was so distracted with him being in town that I had to find him because I knew he was there. But he really wasn't.
Right. But his higher self was there.
Huh?
His higher self was there.
And physically showed himself to me in my reality to distract me from what was going on in my head. And that happened 3 times. So he was showing up, but I had literally just stopped thinking about it.
And so, and your like psychic abilities, your telepathy and all that, you weren't dealing with any of that?
I could deal with it on a personal level. As far as the people around me, I could smell sicknesses and different things like that. But no, I don't remember having any telepathy with him at that time.
Okay.
But it must have been there and was kind of hidden from my line of sight because every time this would happen, he would pop in. And I called him my little angel. Mm-hmm. Which, if you'd have known us back in the day, to even let those words cross my lips was crazy.
How about you, Alan? What was going on for you?
Oh, in the meantime, that was like the second major rejection that I had felt. And, just living on this earth, you're going to get rejected a lot, depending on what you're talking about. But as far as being in a relationship or a connection, that was the second major rejection that really hurt me because I started really thinking then, well, there's really, really, honestly, something severely wrong with me. So I carried that, and that's who I thought I was. And I kept that. So I kept trying to escape it again through drinking and drugs and promiscuousness and whatever I could do to not have to look at me, I did it. I was able to function. I was able to hold jobs and do okay. I got by. But much of the 90s, from pretty much from the time that Sandra and I got married and first got together through pretty much most of the 90s was nothing but a blur to me.
We call it the purple haze.
It was nothing but that whole time period, I lost it. I could tell you certain little things here and there, but I didn't have the nerve to do what she was contemplating. I thought about it because I didn't want to be here anymore either. And I thought, well, if I do this right, I can just maybe not wake up at some point. So I kept trying to drink and drug myself to death, and I just didn't get the job done.
He was brutal, too.
And that's what I did. And that was my life. That's what I did. The people I hung around with, if you didn't do it, I had no use for you. I was pretty cold-hearted because I swore to God I was never going to get hurt again. Never. If anybody's going to get hurt, it's going to be the other person, not me. And I made sure that I lived my life that way to avoid feeling that rejection again.
Well, how about when you were together with Sandra and you were doing drugs and partying and stuff?
Well, that was just having fun. That was just having fun. I had no real purpose other than I just enjoyed the feeling. I'd be hanging out with some, people who I thought were cool, obviously. And, that was fun. When Sandra and I split, I had a different purpose behind it. It switched.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I would put myself in positions, to where, well, I'm not going to do it. Maybe you want to kill me, and it just never happened. So
he literally, during a lightning storm, a thunder and lightning storm at one point, went outside when the lightning was hitting everywhere and laid on the hood of a car, waiting for the lightning to strike him, and was really, really upset when it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was taunting God.
Yeah, he was really upset.
Yeah, so I don't want to go into much more detail than that, but that's that gives you a good overview.
And how about your karmic relationships? Did they last a long time? Did they last the whole 10 years or?
Mine was, we were in separation at the time when Alan and I came back together, and I was really, really ill. And Alan had just started a new relationship. Mm-hmm. And she did not like me. Oh, she did not like me. And his dad had passed away, and I told the girls, I said, well, we're in Missouri. Let's go see your dad. And they were really excited. And we did go to his mom's little apartment, and was Debbie with you at the time?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we knew something strange was going on because we walked in, and we weren't able to really talk too much, but his mom pulled me in the kitchen, and she said, I want to point out this thing up on the wall. And it was a basket. And I said, oh, I remember that. And she said, exactly, you gave it to me. And she said, I've kept it all these years because I know what's going to happen. And I'm like, really? And she goes, you still love him? And I said, no, I don't. No way. Well, sometime during this, we stepped outside on the front porch. And Alan and I were standing there, and we were talking about our daughter.
Yeah.
And she was young, she was pregnant, and there was a lot of trauma behind that. And so we were talking about it, and he just lightly grazed my hand. He didn't even mean to. And when he did, it sent lightning bolts through my body. And I was like, oh, no, not again. I recognized that. And I was like, I can't do this right now. Not now. And so we had a pretty good day until his girlfriend went a little nuts.
Yeah.
And they had to leave. And somehow or another, Alan and I ended up having a conversation on the phone as I'm taking the girls back, and I'm lost, and I'm giggling, and he's thinking in his, what was it you were thinking in your mind?
I just like, yeah, she still loves me. I don't know how, but she still loves me. I knew it. I could just tell by the tone in her voice. I'm just like, oh my God. And I was thinking the same thing she was. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. Really?
So I had that little girl giggle. We all get that little giggle that says, oh my God, I love you so much. And we're talking on the phone, and I really don't want to hang up the phone. And it was a really pivotal moment. It was at the 11-year mark. I was in separation with someone, and here he was getting ready to get in a huge fight with his girlfriend over his kids and his ex-wife coming. And it was one day, and that was it. And we wouldn't meet again for another 11 years.
11 years.
Wow.
But it was enough that I have to tell you, it changed my life so drastically. I was so sick. And Alan will even tell people she looked haggard. She
just looked tired and worn out.
And at that point, after we met, I really started coming back to life. Mm-hmm. I noticed that my skin changed. It became really soft. And my hair that was falling out in clumps suddenly started growing back. And I just had this zest for life that had been gone for a while.
So there was an activation that occurred at that meeting.
Yes.
And kind of the same thing went for me simultaneously, but, neither one of us knew about what the other one was going through, because like she said, it was going to be another 11 years. But the same thing happened to me. Things started turning around, and they had started to a little bit before that. I finally started getting my stuff together a little bit, but yeah, it started happening to me. But I don't necessarily know that I was conscious of it as much as I was made aware of it in retrospect, because it was like, yeah, things are changing, but I didn't know why yet. I had no idea.
And he hadn't even got into radio yet. He didn't get into radio until after his dad passed away, and his mom gave him money to go to broadcasting school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he got into broadcasting school at that point, and amazingly, just a few short months later, I went back to Colorado with my karmic partner and went into radio. So there's just these
little synchronicities.
Yeah, we were both in radio, different perspectives. He was on air and I was behind the scenes doing marketing and different things like that. But it was still there, the synchronicities. And we can back up all the way to the time when we were teenagers and came into first contact with each other. All the way forward, we've always been only 3 hours apart from each other. Always. Colorado Springs is 3 hours from Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was in Missouri, it was 3 hours from where he was. So
we didn't know, but we found out later that's just the way we were moving together and didn't even realize it.
Yeah. Working the grid.
Yeah.
Right.
We still do that. We're still moving all over the place. About every year we move to go to a new place, and the universe will say a plane ticket's coming or something's coming, and sure enough, it comes within a matter of a week.
Yeah.
And we're off and running. So we know that when those moments come in now, we've learned to trust them. We have complete faith that the universe is guiding us every place we need to go. And this is some serious grid work. And we don't even have to know what we're doing.
No, I know.
Just go and trust.
I think I just want to go back and just mention the activation quickly, because this is a key point for twins. There's a lot of twins that they don't know what they are. Or they're just kind of having a normal life. I know other twins that they've been married, and then the activation happens. That changes everything. Sometimes it happens the moment that you meet. Sometimes it happens years into the relationship, but it's really that activation that kind of flips a switch and I guess begins the awakening process.
Well, I can honestly tell you that we have had so many activations. It's not
a number of them.
It's not just that. I mean, you have the main activation where you lock eyes, and then you have other activations throughout this time. Yes. Or you'll have synchronicities where we've coined his ex that he was just going into the relationship with when we met. When his dad passed away, as being what I was when I was younger, very volatile and very angry and controlling, to getting out of that when we reconnected via the phone and via computer, and going into another relationship with somebody that was just the kindest, sweetest person ever. So it's like you have to experience the worst of the worst and the best of the best and balance it out. And when you do, these amazing miracles start to happen. We get so flooded with the trauma that we're not looking for the miracles that are appearing all around us. And so once that was balanced out, when we came together, you couldn't stop it. We call it the runaway freight train effect.
Yeah.
There was no break. Yeah. When it started, it was not going to stop. And the universe had a different way of putting us together than what we expected. And then we look at it and go, wow, we weren't in control of that at all.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
So, yeah, there's activations. And you'll have many activations.
Yeah, and activating each other, even just what you say to each other can be an activation.
Right.
Of sorts.
Coming into their energetic field activates you. So there are times when there were places where Alan, I'm sure, had been, and I go to those locations and I'm activated by them. Now, we knew that our grid was very large, but we didn't know how large it was until we came back together. And then we were like, whoa, this is huge. This is huge. And I believe that there's not just one main activation. I believe every level of clearing and understanding that you are here to master the 3D, someone will be put in your path to either activate you, or you will come in contact with your twin's energy and it will activate you. But something will happen when it's time for you to level up. We call it leveling up.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be scary, but at the same time, the better you get at this, the more fun it is.
Agreed.
But it's getting through the trauma. I mean, we really experienced major trauma early on. And once we had tipped the scales and experienced that trauma, there was no bliss. So when we did finally come back together, the bliss was extensive and it lasted for quite a long time.
Yeah, it did.
And once it balanced out, it was like, okay, time to go on mission.
Well, and you guys had like a very long history before separation. You were together for 4 years in this very volatile environment. Did you find it easy to release the past, or did you kind of, because I've talked to people who've been through similar experiences maybe, and it's like how to let go sometimes when you've experienced so much kind of pain together.
I didn't have any issue, like, the hardest thing I had to go through, and I'm just speaking for myself here, was forgiving myself. That was my biggie. I mean, everybody else, I could even almost rationalize their behavior towards me by saying, yeah, I was an asshole.
Sorry.
But I mean, I could rationalize their behavior easily, and I honestly held no grudges toward anybody. I had no hard feelings towards anyone about anything that was thrown my way from them or by them. I had a thing of forgiving myself, and that was my hardest thing. Everybody else a cakewalk, but myself, that's something, honestly, I'm still working on today.
Mm-hmm. When we actually reconnected, he was working at a radio station, and I had heard via my higher self that his mother had passed away. And my daughter called me, one of our twins, and she said, Mom, I had a dream that Grandma Shirley died. And I said, so did I. I will find out where he's at. And because we hadn't heard anything, we didn't know. And my mom and dad were still alive, and Alan could have got a hold of him, but he knew better than to stick his hand in that viper pit.
I wasn't doing that. No.
So I started searching him out, and that's when I found him in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And he was on a radio station, but he was only there for a short time, and then he disappeared. And I was like, what is going on here? So I kept listening to the radio station because there was just something soothing about it. And not too long past that, he came back. And I was like, oh my God, he's back on the air. I know that voice anywhere. So as I'm going through life, I'm streaming his radio station. Nice thing about computers is you can stream. And I was streaming his radio station, and I get to hear his voice. And it just made me excited. And I would send emails to his radio station requesting songs. I wouldn't call him, but I would send a request. And just this one particular day, I sent this one song that is very, very pivotal to me. And I used to sing it in our apartment all the time, and we thought for sure we were going to get evicted because I would sing it very loudly.
Very loudly.
So I sent a message via email to the radio station, and I said, will you play this song? And all of a sudden, I get this email back that says, San, is this you? And I was like, oh, wait a minute here. No way, because my email...
I could just hear her go, from 2 hours away, I could hear it.
And I'm like, I really did. I went, and I'm busted. He knows it's me. And there was no way he could have known it was me. I don't even think he remembered my last name.
I did.
You did?
I did.
Oh my God.
I did.
So the email was SD Taylor. And so I thought, there's no way he knows who I am. And that opened up the line of communication. And we played songs. I would request songs and he would play them. So the frequency played a big role in what was going on. But I remember the words that came across his lips that made me just absolutely go jelly kneed. We were having a discussion and I said, I forget what it was I said, but I sent the message to him and he came back and he goes, San, I never stopped loving you. And I was like, I had one of those moments again. And I went weak in the knees. And I was like, oh my God, what is he saying?
And I knew what I was opening up doing that, but I'm just like, I'm not hiding anymore.
So at that time,
I spent the previous decade in oblivion. I wasn't going to do it again.
At that time, we just started telling each other everything and saying, well, you know, I'm really sorry for acting this way. I'm really sorry for this. And I'm like, we have children here, and these children are scarred from what we've done. And I'll take responsibility for that. But you've got to take some responsibility, too, because they're wondering, well, he's still our dad. Why didn't he reach out? Well, I can say I wouldn't let him talk to you until I'm blue in the face. But the kids are older now, and they're going, why would you do that, Mom? You know? So we had a lot of things to answer for.
Yep.
And but our friendship became so amazing. He was better than the best friend I'd ever had. In fact, my best friend didn't like him. He was such a good best friend. It was like, I know you're talking to somebody else. You're not talking to me. Who are you talking to? Because it can't be me. You're not talking to me. Who are you talking to? But it was Alan, and he became the very best friend I'd ever had, the most amazing love I'd ever experienced, even though it was volatile. It wasn't the greatest, what we visualized it should be, you know, but it was just this amazing, to my core being, amazing man I always wanted. And then I had to deal with, I have a husband. And I don't want to hurt him. But he really wanted to hurt Alan. And so here we go with another activation. And I laid in bed for 3 days and cried because I knew that this was a make or break situation. It was like, are you going to choose to stay in your uncomfortableness and be uncomfortable? Or, are you going to stay in your comfortableness and be uncomfortable? Or are you going to shake it up? Well, needless to say, I shook it up. I really shook it up. I wasn't going to tolerate not being able to talk to him because my husband at the time was a tech, and he could spy on me and everything, and he was threatening Alan, and I understand that, I do.
Yeah.
But I knew that we weren't going anywhere, and we had hurt each other so badly, my ex and I, that somebody was going to have to give, and we had to walk away. Our contract was done. And that was the hardest thing.
Yeah.
But Alan and I discussed it, and we said, okay, we're not going to do anything wrong. We came into this doing some things that were not right. We're not leaving and coming back together in any way, shape, or form until we do things the right way. So there was no coming together and cheating on someone or anything like that. This was all about building that relationship that had been scarred so bad.
Building a crush almost, like new energy.
Yeah. So we started new and started apologizing for some things. And once a year we would meet face to face, and it was the most, I can't even explain it. It's like this little kid that's going to get what they've wanted for their birthday for their whole lives, and they're going to get it, and you're so excited.
Once a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
While you were waiting to separate from your marriage?
Yeah, I actually divorced within a year from the time that Alan and I reconnected, but I was still living at home with him, and he knew that we weren't having intercourse or anything like that, but it was a small house, so I told him, you can date anybody you want, you know, but Alan was going through this amazing relationship with another woman, and she was just this beautiful, I'll say pixie energy. It's really easy to understand. Just this amazing, beautiful woman who hadn't done anything wrong, but she'd had a pretty rough life, and she just wanted somebody that would love her. And I actually told him one day, I said, you're walking all over her. You're not the one for her. And he said, I know that. And he said, but I don't know how to say, I can't do this. So the universe done it for him. And as that started going, like I said, it's like a runaway freight train. When the universe, you make a 10% effort to put an action step towards what you want, the universe follows suit with the other 90%. So you don't have to do much. You just have to get the wheel rolling in the right direction.
Yeah.
And the universe will kickstart it, and 90% follow suit.
Yeah.
And that's what occurred.
Yeah. Did you guys find that things moved a lot easier than you expected?
Oh my God.
Oh, yes.
Like, you often see people like wringing their hands about these decisions that they have to make, about how hard it's going to be. But, you know, in my own life, I've found just what you said, Sandra, that if I really wanted something, I just had to put a little bit of effort, and the universe like stepped up and took care of everything for me.
Yeah.
Amazingly, it was one of our children.
Yeah.
Because I was very comfortable being in this house and sharing bills and stuff with my ex. And my daughter calls one day and she said, well, what's going on with you and my dad? And I said, not too much, because he's living with this woman, and I don't quite know where to go from here. And she just bluntly said, Mom, if you want him to take a step forward, don't you think you need to make an effort to move out of the house of your ex? And I was like, oh my God, it was like a slap in the face out of the mouths of babes. Yeah. And I was like, you're absolutely right. And that day, I kid you not, I thought, wow, I can't believe my kid just put me in my place. And I went looking for homes, and it was like not too long after that, from the time Alan and I came together, I was dying. And it was Easter weekend before we came back together.
Yeah.
And I had spent my tax return getting a cabin in Estes Park. And I was determined to bring everybody together so I could have the whole family together one last time. X and I weren't having anything to do with each other. He was going to some kind of event that was going on in Denver, Colorado. So we brought all the kids in and the grandkids. And it was just this amazing weekend of bliss beyond anything we can describe. His mother showed up. There were orbs in the pictures.
All over the place.
And we sat down at this huge table with the kids. He was at one end and I was at the other. And we just looked at each other like, yeah, we are what started this whole
Almost
thing.
30 years after the fact, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would have to nap frequently because I was quite sick. But we got to spend this Easter weekend together with all the kids. And it was just this eye-opening moment. And I know the words that came out of my mouth when we left that weekend is, I don't want to go, because I'm going to have surgery. And I'm either going to die on the table, or I'm going to come out a different person. And I'm still here, and I tell people that all the time. And I remember them taking me under and saying, oh my God, get her on the table, she's going to hemorrhage to death. And then I woke up, and my best friend had stayed in contact with him via the phone the whole time, texting. And I told him, I said, I got to do this myself. I got to do this myself because something is happening. And this is where we talk about, I believe there was a walk-in at that time. Like, I knew it was going to happen and I had to prepare for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the relationship with every family member after that just kind of, it changed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it evolved with him and I.
Yeah.
And all of the action steps were finally coming into place. And when we finally came together, it was, I mean, within weeks after I found a place to live. My daughter was right. You have to take the action step. 10% effort, 90% is the universe. I had 2 weeks in that house by myself. First time in my entire adult life that I had any time to myself. And then Alan came, and we had an adjustment period where we had to adjust to each other's energy, because all of a sudden we go from being 3 hours apart to we're together and our frequencies are not quite jiving just yet. It took us 2 weeks. 2 weeks to get used to the frequency and to actually be able to stand in the same room together without going, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah, because that's what we were thinking, just like, oh man, what did we do? And, we just wrote it out, just like, we'll just keep doing the best we can right now. And that's what we did. And it ended up leveling out, but yeah, there for a little bit, we have to say that we weren't entirely sure that we did the
right thing.
The right thing at that point.
So the frequencies have to balance out. They have to come in alignment, and there's going to be those ebb and flows, and then there's going to be those really big tidal waves that are coming in, and you're going to have to get your belly board and kind of hold on for your life, because it's going to rock your world.
Absolutely. But it will pass if you just let what has to happen happen. Because, I know that if we'd have tried this, I think, any earlier in our lives,
we'd have never made it.
I don't think we would have made it either. And I think that's one of the big things that folks need to look at is that, if you're on this twin flame journey thing, and it can be, obviously, like what, we've been talking about, it can be either really wonderful or really horrific, depending on which cycle you happen to be in. But the patience, I know that's one of the things that we're still learning, on different levels, of course, and concerning different things. But, the electronic age has been wonderful in that we can have everything at our fingertips pretty much when we want it. Mm-hmm. But the downside to that is now we have come to expect that everything that we want
is going to be
there in, what does Google say, 1.9203 seconds, or whatever, and I think that's one of the things where we had an advantage, because we didn't have that. We didn't have that mindset, and it's prevalent today because it's what people have grown up with. So I think in that regard, we had an advantage. We just thought we were crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's better sometimes knowing that. Yeah.
Right.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I just feel like there are a lot of people out there, and they're trying so hard to come into union. And I really believe it's that only 10% action and 90% of the universe following suit.
Yeah.
But a lot of this has to do with our own self-improvement and development. And we're going to have to do the work.
Right, and that's the thing, because I know, we've heard it a lot, and I'm sure, Marla, you've heard it, and, anyone who works any facet of the twin flame journey, we hear it all the time. We see it on Facebook, why isn't my twin doing that? Why isn't my twin doing that? Or acting this way, or why did they do that? It's just like, why are you so concerned with what they're doing? Is any of this being redirected back at yourself? Is any of this work that you're so eager to have done, are you doing any of this work, that you expect your twin to have?
It was so easy to just look at Alan and go, it's all your fault.
Well, yeah.
And he could look at me and go, it's all your fault. When actually what we need to be doing is when we're triggered to the point where our twin has triggered us, we might want to look and see why. So direct it back to yourself and go, okay, why is this showing up? Maybe this is very important. Like I said, we miss the miracles in the midst of all the trauma. It's easier to blame other people.
I think sometimes, too, it can be really hard. Excuse my voice, everybody. I got a cold.
No, I got that dry spot, too, a little bit. It's just like, get out.
Yeah. It can be really hard for people, I think, to understand the mirror, to see their own projections. Like, sometimes people are just so deep in it, they really can't see it.
Right.
Or it's something that they don't want to see so badly that they're avoiding looking at it. But
well, isn't that the society we live in though today? I mean, the society that we live in today says if something goes wrong, who's responsible?
Exactly.
And nobody's saying anything like, okay, I screwed up, I did this wrong, or I didn't do this right, or I should have done this, maybe shouldn't have done that. It's always like, well, you did this, that caused me to, or this person did that. And you see it all the time, especially in politics. That's all politics is. And people are so ingrained in that it's almost become second nature for folks to look outside of themselves for a reason because something isn't going their way.
It's a belief, and it's coming up for a reason. And the easiest and best way to deal with it is to kind of look at the situation that may be tipping you into a trigger point and say, oh, I acknowledge that. Basically what you're doing and saying to the universe is, I own that. I see that.
mm-hmm.
And move through it as quickly as possible, and it exits your reality. So we have to look at things as they're coming up in our reality. If there's something that these angels are sent here to annoy us. They are here to trigger us. They are here to make us grow in ways we can't even imagine. But to point the finger at them and say, you made me feel this way is absolutely ridiculous, considering there's no separatism. We are one. So if it's happening to you being triggered by him, you might want to look at you.
Right. Absolutely. It's such a symbiotic relationship because, they're mirroring things to you. And then when you see that, you can get rid of that program, and then that effectively rids it in them too, because they no longer have to mirror that program to you.
Yes, so, exactly.
Like you're clearing like a ladder. Okay, I cleared that. Now you can clear that. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Okay, we got that. And you're just like climbing up this ladder until your biggest programs are gone. And I think each twin pair probably has, certain specific programs to them that they really need to clear in order to create the frequency of harmony so that they can create more of that union energy. But you don't even need to be together to be harmonizing your frequency and creating that union energy.
Yeah. We have a little phrase that we like to say, and it's all about the programs. So let's say that you have a new program. Well, when we got Windows 10, it was a pain in the butt, I got to tell you, to go from where we were to Windows 10. So you have a convergence time where you're using an old program, and you're going to download a new one. But the phrase that you should use is, push the button, baby. All you have to do is put that 10% action in that says, I'm going to push the button, I'm going to download the program, the old will fall away, the new will come in, but it will be very uncomfortable and hard to learn. But once you do, you're like, wow, this was cool.
Yeah. And suddenly, like, you're so much more efficient and energized and full of joy in the process.
Yeah, but while you're going from one operating system to another, it's going to lag, it's going to glitch, it's going to burp at you and do everything but what it's supposed to do.
And what's really funny is when you got this man for a twin, say push the button, babe.
Push the button, babe.
It's Barry White all over. How do you not push the button?
Push that button, babe.
I was having these experiences recently where it just seemed like so easy. Like an old program would come up into my mind for a second, and I'd just say, delete that program, and I would actually like see this hair like going into my head and like yanking that program out.
It's Control-Alt-Delete, baby. So I think it can get really tricky, and there are a lot of couples that once they get into this expansion and contraction, and it's not smooth all the time, and those contractions get more intense the more bliss you're in, it becomes really difficult to understand why the universe is putting you through this. Why is the universe doing this? Why is the universe doing this? It's not the universe. You signed up for this. The universe is assisting you in every way possible. We just have to look at those contractions as being, what's on the other side? Can we get excited about the horrific stuff as much as we can about the stuff when we're in bliss?
Mm-hmm.
And no, there's something on the other side of this crap that's coming up. Can we get excited? 9 times out of 10, people are not programmed to get excited about trauma. I'm just here to tell you. But when you get a chance to look back at it and really see what it's done for you, you become very grateful. So I say stop in this moment, write down what you're grateful for, and write down the things you don't like so much, and be grateful for them.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what it is that's trying to click, and push the button, baby. That's all you got to do. Push the button.
Well, I guess for maybe new people coming in, it's a lot harder to recognize that, but you do, if you just keep walking your journey, you'll reach this tipping point where you look back, like you're saying, Sandra, and you're saying, wow, like, the universe helped me change my life.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there were some dark days in there, but those lighter days just keep growing, growing, and growing. If you stick with it.
Yeah. Have you seen what's the old show where all of the furniture was glued to the ceiling?
Oh, yeah.
Was that the Twilight Zone? I think it was the Twilight Zone.
I think it might have been one episode of that. Yeah, I don't know.
So you're used to seeing the furniture in one way, and you look at it, and you can walk up and you can sit on it, and then all of a sudden your furniture is glued to the ceiling, and you're looking up at it, and you're going, well, how do I sit on that? You got to flip it, baby. And we are these amazing manifestors that can flip anything. You just have to know you're capable of it. Know it in your soul.
And that's why you're removing the programs, so you know that.
Yeah. You're this amazing, beautiful being that is here to assist humanity to shift. And keep going. Don't stop.
Well, speaking of that, tell us what your mission is and what you guys are doing out there.
Oh my goodness.
You're doing some great work.
Well, we're trying to do a lot of good stuff. I mean, of course, we love doing what we do in the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Twin Flame Divine Fire on TFRlive.com. We love doing that, and kind of like doing what you're doing today.
Yeah.
Bringing on different people with, their points of view, their perspective, their experience, and everything else. And, of course, I know here lately we've been doing a lot, and we're grateful for it, recalibrations.
Yes.
Because this year, oh my God, this year has been a heck of a ride. This has been one of the most energetic years I think I ever remember, ever, if not the most energetic.
This is time for you to get your boogie board. And you better strap it on because it might get thrown off with this tidal wave.
Yeah.
It's a very, very energetic time, and there are a lot of people when they are caught in these triggers. They really don't know how to get out. We used to hear a lot in the beginning of this. They're caught on the hamster wheel. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the hamster wheel's all well and good because you just keep moving and moving and moving and moving. But this is a trigger event, which means you're going to move even faster when those trigger events happen because you want to run the hell away from it. Sorry. But you really want to get as far away from it as you possibly can. When actually all you need to do is stop and take a look at what you're supposed to be seeing because you're moving so quickly that you're missing the overall view. Mm-hmm. There is something that you need to see. Slow down, take a deep, focused breath, and breathe out. And do that a couple times, and allow yourself to sit in the energy and say, what is the universe showing me? Because it's time for recalibration. We're gonna classify this like octaves of music. Every time you go up an octave, it goes back to 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna go up an entire scale. And you're going to reach a point where you're at 0 point and you're manifesting everything your heart desires. And then all of a sudden, the bottom drops out. Why is that? You're at 0 again. Now you've got to go in, clear out some more stuff. When you get about halfway up, all of a sudden you're manifesting on a mass scale again. And you're like, wow, this is really cool. Yeah, ride the wave. And you're going to contract. So I think it's more about studying the cycles. What are your cycles? What's occurring? And ride the wave. When the contraction happens, it may be time for you to get assistance from people who carry the keys and codes that can kind of move you up in the octave and say, it's going to be okay. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Push the button, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And move forward. So we're doing a lot of recalibrations for people. All that is we bring them into our energy. It's not something that people don't know how to do. Every person on this planet knows how to do it, but they forgot.
Yeah.
So we do it and we show them what they're looking for the next level and try to get them to the point where they're shifting themselves. They don't need anybody to help them. But if you're caught on that wheel and you can't see it, you may need somebody to point it out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing. We're pointing out what we see in our energy and ask you to look for the same in yours. And you will see so much more slowing down than you will just moving really quick. You know, I love being on a motorcycle because you see everything around you with nothing to hinder what you're looking at. But at the same time, isn't that kind of scary to look down and see the ground moving that quick under you?
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes you got to pull the bike off, get off the bike, and just stand there and look around and go, hey, this is pretty cool. Love the wind in my hair, but I got to stop so I can take a look every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we forget to stop and look.
Yep, we do.
So I hope that makes sense. But that's what we're doing. We're doing a lot of recalibrations, helping people. And it's basically just talking to us and telling us what's going on in your environment. And we tap into it and recalibrate you so that you can look past all of that speediness that's going by so quick and kind of slow down and experience the bliss. Because if you've been in the dark stuff way too long, the bliss eludes you. It's just like, where'd it go? I know it's there. We gotta have some fun.
And I had a recalibration with you guys last week after the workshop, actually, and I had so many activations and different types of activations at the workshop, and just so much, I'll just say energetic exchange.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You know, not even bringing in Kalina's activations and Ushaya's activations and codes into it. And, so we talked and you guys did a recalibration on me, and it just, I felt helped me just integrate all the energetic stuff that I had been through. Yeah. And I had some shifts from around that. So thank you guys. And I definitely,
you're
vouch for your work.
Welcome.
It's really funny how other couples that are in union assist other couples in union, whether it's in the higher dimensional states or in the 3D, because we had several activations when we were on with Kalina and Yoshaya on the radio.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then afterwards they said, oh my goodness, the activations, they had a hawk fly over them. Well, we are really into the bird of praise, eagles and hawks and the big birds. And so we know our voice is going out on the radio, and that's one thing we want to express to people. It's not the subject matter that we're talking about. It's the frequency that's going out. A lot of people say, when I listen to your voice, it's very soothing. Well, I am here to tell you, it's soothing for you, but if Alan and I go back and we listen to our own voices, we can't do it.
Well, I used to hate my voice, and now I don't mind. I can listen to it. But, yeah, people often comment that they find my voice extremely relaxing. A lot of people listen to my voice before they go to bed because I help them fall asleep. And I always say, I don't know whether that's a compliment or not.
Yeah, how do you take that,
right? People like to hear it because they like to hear my voice because I laugh. My laughter really makes them feel comfortable. And his is that deep, very white voice. It resonates to the core. I mean, it will shake everything. And that's kind of what a recalibration is. You are being shaken at the core to shake up all that residual energy that you've got, that you're holding in your body. And then we come in with music and we kind of lift it up and clear out as much as we can, and you get to view life from a different perspective. And when you do, it's like an aha moment. So there is life out there, and life is meant to be amazing, but we get so caught up in this twin flame journey that we forget this is about self-love too. This is more about self-love.
Oh, yeah.
And purging what you've got.
And if you're one, right? Every time, you focus on yourself, that's the only way you can help the other person. If you focus your attention on them, you're not helping them. You're actually probably pushing them away with all that energy. When you focus on yourself, it's the best thing you can do for everybody.
You're standing still, and in that moment of quantum physics, when you stand still, the other like you that's in the universe backs up. But if you're observing it, you're going to see only one thing. You don't see the multiple what's the word I'm looking for? The multiple potentials that are out there. Look away and let things come to you that you can't decipher and you can't even possibly imagine. You've got to look away in quantum physics and allow the universe to bring a completely different scenario into your life. But if you're observing your twin and going, well, he's doing this or she's doing that, you stopped all momentum.
Yeah.
And you need to look away.
Changing the outcome.
Yeah, and look at yourself and focus on you so that they can back up and become, and I will say, become these most amazing kings and queens. And that's what they are. There's no separatism. None.
No.
When you say he's doing this and somebody else said she's doing that, you're separating the two. There is no separatism. It is one.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
I just got on a soapbox there for a minute, but hey, I think it's really important for people to know that.
Yeah, I agree.
So when can people catch Twin Flame Divine Fire Radio?
We're on
Saturdays, 4 to 6 Central.
And
would that be
2 to 4 Pacific.
Yeah. On TFRlive.com.
And you can go to twinflamedivinefire.com, and any link that's up there, if it says TFR, if it says iHeart, if it says Tuned In, or it says TalkStream Live, you click on that and from our website, and it will take you directly to that link to listen to the show. So anytime you want to listen to the show and it's getting close on that Saturday, go to our website, click on it, it'll take you directly to it. All you got to do is wait.
And people can listen to past episodes from your website as well, correct?
Yeah, they can subscribe. We have about 12 weeks of shows that are up.
It's about 12, yeah, I think.
That you don't have to be a subscriber to listen to. We encourage people to be subscribers because that assists us, and it also assists TFR because we get half of the proceeds, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
TFR gets the other half. It is like maybe $10 a month, I think. And we get half of that, and they get half of that. Yeah. Not only that, but TFR's owners are also twin flames. And they deal with a lot of stuff that we don't deal with. And we need to support them as well. They've given us this amazing venue for twin flames to really get out there and make their mission known. And I think we need to be supporting them on every level we possibly can.
I tell you, just keeping TFRlive.com going, that's a gargantuan task. And of course, Chris does it so well. And I mean, that takes a lot of time and it takes some money. So.
And if you can't remember TFR, remember Twin Flame Radio. It's Truth Frequency Radio, but we joke and call it Twin Flame Radio. Same thing. Just bring up TFR Live. Twin Flame Radio Live. And there are a ton of different hosts on there. You can listen to Beyond the Veil, which is Chris and Shirley on the station.
Cover everything.
There are so many people that you can listen to, and you get access to all of their archives, including all of ours. And we've been on the air 3 years coming up. Yeah. And so it's really a great tool to have. We've had some great guests on and some great shows.
Including
and a lot
me.
Of people. Yes, including you.
Yes. Love that.
We've had Debbie DuBois, and we had Kalina, and I want to call him William, but Alan calls him by his.
Josiah.
Yeah. And
then, I just took pronouncing his name as a personal challenge.
Yeah, I know, right? So we've had Lee Harris on. We've had Magenta Pixie. We've had Deva Pramal. We've had some pretty Kapacha.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people on there over the years.
David Palmer,
the Leo King.
Too.
We've got a lot of people on. And Rosamai and Paradiso, one of our main sponsors on TFR, they've also been on our show. In fact, we went syndicated on the 1st of January 3 years ago when we had them on the air.
Wow.
So there's some amazing twin flames out there, and generally a lot of them are not telling you who they are, but you can tell by listening to them, and they get on our show and they're like, oh yeah, we're twin flames. They admit to it on the air.
Yeah.
And it's like, but we recognize them. You will recognize twin flames. You will.
Yeah.
And of course, so, outside of that, if anything that we've said resonates with you, if you feel like you need a little assistance, you can always, in whatever it is that you're going through on your path. We do have our own website now that is pronounceable and not too hard, twinflamedivinefire.com instead of all that other stuff behind it. So, yeah, look around.
And for the folks that listen to your program, we'll do like we done with Debbie. If they get in touch with us normally to have a session, and attunement is $77 for an hour, but we done a $44 special.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
If they want to sign up for it, let us know, and they'll know right off the bat later on after they meet us. Generally, they don't come to us unless they really resonate with us, and then they're like, "Oh my God, you guys are like mom and dad." So it's that energy that says, "I'm supported every step of the way, and the universe is making sure." So we try to do the best we can by offering the recalibration. So
I will put a link in the comments to twinflamesdivinefire.com so people can find you.
Okay. And they can listen to us any Saturday and go into archives. And eventually we would like to expand the shows and do some more, but at this point we're doing it's a 2-hour show. So
that's a big commitment.
But it goes so quick. You know that. You were on the show. It goes really quick. And there are a lot of activations and key codes that occur during the shows. So listen to them and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
But we are so grateful to you.
Yeah, we are.
Well, I'm grateful to you for being on.
Well, thank you.
It has been our pleasure and our honor. We think the world of you and everything that you're doing, Marla.
Thank you so much.
We love Angie and Rob too, but we weren't note takers like they were.
Oh, God, no. Oh.
I didn't have time. I was too busy changing diapers.
Oh, they would have been. I would love to have them as note takers on our journey.
Oh, I know.
Because they would have had like the Library of Congress. That's what they would have had been writing. You wanted to get they get detailed.
They do. They get a lot of detail.
Oh my
God. Great notes, and that's their journey. Everybody has their own journey, and Alan's and I's was just to get in there and ride the wave and figure it out and know how not to drown.
I'd lose years at a time, let alone forget about taking notes about it. What, are you kidding me?
That's why you need the notes.
Exactly.
You wanted to forget those years, maybe.
No, we look back at them. I mean, we can deal with it now, but back then it wasn't that easy, you know.
No, so. But it's all good. It's all good.
But we so enjoy working with people, and if they're on this twin flame journey and they need any assistance at all they need to do is reach out. We are so easy to get a hold of, it's not even funny.
It's hard. You don't have to do it on your own.
Then go to Sandra Alan on Facebook.
Facebook, yeah.
Or they can find Twin Flame Divine Fire Radio Show on Facebook as well. Yeah. It's a like page. And so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, guys. I hope that you all enjoyed listening as well. And we will be back again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.